My guest, Fredrick Wiseman, is a very, very well-known and renowned filmmaker. Has won Guggenheim and the MacArthur Fellow for his work in film. Crazy Horse is his 39th film, and joins us here at WKCR. Fredrick Wiseman, thank you so much. It's an honor.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
So I know that you don't like to say your movies are about something, as that might simplify the film. Usually I ask people, what's the film about, or the story, or something like that. So in this case, I guess I'll just ask you, what is The Crazy Horse?
Well, just parenthetically, one time in France at the Centre Pompidou, after a screening of Welfare, which is a 3-hour film, the first question was, what is the film about? My answer was, about 3 hours.
Exactly.
The Crazy Horse is a very famous Parisian nightclub. It was founded in 1951 by Alain Bernardin, and it's a club where very accomplished dancers do intricate or do real choreography, do real dancing, more or less naked. And it's been a very famous club since it was founded by Bernardin in 51, and it was run. He died. In fact, he committed suicide there about 16 or 17 years ago, and then it was run for a number of years by his family. And it was recently taken over by some Belgian businessmen. But the spirit is the same, and in fact, there's not all. There's a new show there, and what I did for the movie was to follow the rehearsals for the new show. But the new show also includes several numbers that are classic Crazy Horse dance routines, which were originally done by Bernardin.
So one of the things that we see in the film, we see many things, including, the girls, how incredibly hard they work practicing for a new show while putting on the show several times a day, right? One of the things we see is the choreographer arguing with these new owners because it is so pressing. So we do have this theme, which as we've seen in many works of art versus commerce. This is art. This is beautiful. It's dance, but at the same time, it's a business and needs to make money. So I wonder if you have any thoughts on that.
The choreographer, Philippe Découfflet, is a very well-known French choreographer. He did the opening and closing ceremony for the French Olympics in '92. He has his own dance company. And he was hired by the Crazy Horse to mount a new show. But there, as you say, there were the typical art versus money conflicts. He wanted to shut down the Crazy Horse for a week and clean the lights and fix up the theater, and they said no. And that was just one of several kinds of constraints that were imposed on him during the preparations for the new show.
Now, I wonder if you personally have any thoughts on, art versus commerce. All of your films are publicly funded, right? And on PBS,
right,
for the most part. And so you're making art, and you don't really. Do you ever have any sort of commercial thoughts while you're?
Well, I don't know how to. I hope my films are commercially successful because I like to eat as much as the next person. But I don't think of that. I don't even know how to think of that while making the film, and so I just make the film to meet my own standards, whatever they may be, in relation to the subject matter. I think I have a responsibility to the people who've given me permission, either the people who run the place that's the subject of the film or the people who are in the film, to make a film that fairly represents my experience during the time that I'm there.
Mm-hmm.
So that sometimes the films are shorter, sometimes they're longer, but when they're longer it's because it's a complicated subject, and it would be a disservice to the institution, to the subject, and to the participants if I simplified it in the interests or in the service of allegedly reaching a larger public or for some commercial purpose.
Now, you mentioned institutions. Your films, the subjects of your films are institutions, whether it's welfare or the army or public housing or, La Dance, the ballet, or the Crazy Horse. Um, I guess I've read that you really don't do much preliminary research
Right.
before you go in and do the movie. Can you tell me about why that is?
Well, because I think the shooting of the film is the research. I don't like to be at a place observing, and something spectacular might happen, and I might miss it, and that would be depressing. It would be and since I don't stage anything, and since events or nothing ever happens in exactly the same way, all I try to do in advance is get a sense of the geography of the place and what the centers of power are, who runs it, and when there are regular staff meetings or any kinds of events that take place on a regular weekly or monthly basis or daily basis. And I can do that very quickly, and then I start. Because if something interesting is happening, it's better to have it for the film. And one of the reasons I always have to shoot a lot of film, and the Crazy Horse was about 150 hours, is because you have to take the risk when something starts of shooting it, because you don't know how it's going to come out, you don't know what people are going to say or do, and sometimes you're right about it being an interesting sequence, and sometimes you're wrong, but unless you shoot it, you don't have the choice of using it.
Got it. So, we mentioned that you like to come in kind of tabula rasa, blank slate, kind of learn about the subject as you're filming the subject. But I think that there might be one subject matter that's an exception, which is the Army. You've done several films about the Army, and you are in the Army. So as such, did you have kind of any sort of take or subjectivity?
Well, it's true. I was in the Army in 1955 and 6, and then I made basic training in 1970. So I'd had the experience 14 years before of going through basic training, and it really hadn't changed that much. And you still had to, learn how to shoot a rifle and run with a pack and do push-ups and the usual stuff. And I'd also been to high school, more or less. And I had taken students on field trips to Bridgewater, which was the site of the prison where I made Titicut Follies. But it's true that high school and basic training are the two films where I had the actual experience of being a participant. And I must say that the first day I went back to Northeast High in Philadelphia, where I made high school, that great wave of boredom that I experienced in Boston Latin School in 1943 came sweeping over me.
Yeah, I had very similar experiences myself. So going in to high school or the Army, would you therefore kind of know better, I'm going to start shooting this because I kind of know what's going to happen?
Because I didn't know what was going to happen. I mean, it's one thing to have a general feeling. I mean, one thing to remember you were bored in high school, but to find, to know what specifically is going to happen, and I have no idea. And also, I like to think that I keep a sufficiently open mind that if the experience was different than my own, that the film would reflect my actual experience at the place. For example, I made another film about a high school 2 at Central Park East over on 105th Street in Madison, which is the reverse of Northeast High, where I made high school. And this Northeast High had 4,000 students. There were probably 35 students to a class. There were 12 blacks out of a student population of 4,000. Central Park East, at the time I made the film in 1992, I think there were 250 students. 40% were black, 40% were Hispanic, and the rest were white, Asian, and other. And the student-teacher ratio